Hello, and welcome to another Spiritual Learning Thursday. Today, we got a question from our viewer. She wants to know how the spirit box works. So, we'll be going over what's in your paranormal toolbox, and our first segment will be the spirit box. Let's dive in. What's in your paranormal toolbox will depend on what kind of investigator you are. Most investigators will have some kind of device to speak to the spirits. Let me give you a little history on the spirit box. In 1969, a middle-aged Latvian doctor, Konstantin Radif, turned up in Gerard's Cross with a large collection of tape recordings he claimed of conversations he had with the then-deceased Hitler, Mussolini, and many more 20th century statesmen. And this wasn't just a few recordings. By that point, Constantine had 72,000 recordings containing these voices. His techniques differed slightly from the techniques of many paranormal investigators of today. Rather than asking questions and seeing what answers that you would get, he simply asked a question and left the tape running, recording silence. Gerard's Cross is the name of the house of publisher Colin Smythe. Constantine was hoping that by revealing his findings to Smythe, he would publish a book on them. In order to convince the head of the publishing house that this was a worthy book topic and not just a hoax, the pair held a series of electronic sessions in Gerard's Cross, using the same setup that Constantine had used in the past with apparent great success. The sessions went so well that the pair had succeeded with getting the book called Breakthrough published, and EVPs and RVPs were on the paranormal investigating scene. The process of capturing the words of these RVPs challenged slightly over the years as different investigators came into play. Nowadays, the most common way is to use a spirit box or ghost box to scan through the radio frequencies, recording the findings so that the investigator can listen back to them after the investigation and carefully examine their findings. There is no complete understanding of how RVP works, but there are many different theories and techniques used by paranormal investigators and enthusiasts to generate speech through a device. So how does a spirit box work? While indeed it is a radio, it has a slight modification that enables it to rapidly scan multiple stations at once, as opposed to a standard radio that's non-stop and plays a single station at once. The aim of a ghost scanner radio or spirit box is to scan all the stations repeatedly, scanning both AM and FM without stopping at a specific frequency, since it is believed that ghosts or spirits tend to communicate on different radio frequencies. Therefore, it does not stop upon finding a channel as it would a regular radio. Essentially, a ghost or spirit box picks up on the paranormal activity while scanning the stations. It detects noises, audio, voices, and only pauses but not stops on a given station to capture an incoming message, mainly in the form of a whole phrase or sentence. So what are some additional features that a spirit box has that a radio doesn't? Depending on which one you use, you might have the ability to record and save the recordings, speeding up or slowing down the process of the scanning, also adjustable sweep directions, noise cancellation and audio filters, backlight displays, built-in flashlights, and you can use with an external speaker most of them. Temperature meters are also on a lot of them that show raises and falls in the temperature at the location you're at. But apart from that, it's no different from a standard radio. It's worth noting that some investigators use standard radios instead of spirit boxes. So what does a spirit box do? It is believed that spirits can communicate with people using white noise, which is why most paranormal investigators and hunters of ghosts have one of these devices amongst their paranormal equipment. If you're wondering why people resort to a spirit box instead of a standard radio station, which could also be used, the reason is that it's been proven through research that sounds other than our everyday spoken language can be captured on a spirit box. How to use it? Easy. Power it on. Try to be in a location where you feel is a little active, and start the scanning process. It's advised to scan on FM, but if you prefer, you can use AM. Moreover, there are no rules when it comes to the speed of the scanning or the sweep rate you set it to. That's up to you. My preference is to use my PSB7T Spirit Box on FM reverse at a sweep rate of 150. Some general tips for a better experience. Start asking the spirits questions. If you're getting too many radio stations coming through, you can switch from AM to FM, which may reduce them. On that note, it's important to remember to be cautious of your language and word choice. You need to be polite and respectful during any communication with spirits. It's only then when you probably will start receiving messages back. On that note, you should leave a long pause between your questions and responses. Leave sufficient time for the spirits to answer back, and not overwhelm them with multiple questions at once while using a spirit box. While you're communicating with the spirits during your session or investigation, you should be listening for relevant voices or audio responses. In other words, communications should make sense and be comprehensible. If you're asking what day it is and it's a Monday, you should hear Monday in response to your question and not something like fruitcake. It should make sense. Speaking of which, it's better to remain silent while waiting for a response to your question, since some sounds can be challenging to hear without audio editing. Most of all, patience. It will take time to tune your ear to pick up on exact words or phrases being said. The big question, do you need one? Well, if you're trying to prove the paranormal, then it's a helpful tool to have in your stash. Speaking of trying to prove the paranormal, it would be helpful if you also had other devices along with your spirit box, like an EMF meter, a motion sensor light, or even a regular recording device that might pick up something that the spirit box didn't. The next question, which one is the right one for you? Let's go over some options. Speaking from experience from someone who bought all 6 different types of spirit boxes, it's not necessary. You only need one, and if you're starting out, I would start with the SB7T. And the reason is because it's so simple to use, and it's best on training your ears so you can understand other spirit boxes. The SB11 also works well, however, there's a lot of functions and it takes a long time to learn. Not great for beginners. The S-Box I disliked the most. It does have a recording feature, but I find it clearer even to record a regular spirit box on a second device. Then you have the hacked radio devices, which you can find on like eBay and Etsy. I highly recommend you do not purchase one of these. Usually they don't work. Then you have the spirit boxes that have just the words. For this, use an app. You don't need to spend the money on the actual box. Then you have what they call the spirit portals, and these can run you anywhere from $450 to $1,000 and upward. I don't recommend you buy these, especially if you're starting out. Especially since, keep in mind, the sounds that you're hearing may not reflect intelligent patterns. And many responses will be picked up from legitimate radio stations. so keep a skeptical head on. With all the paranormal tools out there, it's not necessary for you to take out a second mortgage on your house in order to speak to them. Thank you so much for joining us in another spiritual learning video. Please check out our spiritual learning playlist for more. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing and hit that notification bell for more content. We'll see you again soon.